are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Hello, hi, it's Soul Wanderings night. So happy to have you here with us live for another wandering. Soul Wanderings is heard here on KGRAradio.com every Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, and we get to wander with a new guest each week about their authentic journey through this human experience. And I am AJ Rasmussen. I'm an owner of a heart-centered healing space called Vibes, and it's there where I get to assist others in matters of the mind, the body, the spirit, and the heart. And I'm also your host of Soul Wanderings. Hello, Wanderers. Welcome, welcome. So happy to have you here. If you are listening in on your phone or computer, hop on over to the chat room. I'm hanging out there and would love for you to be there with me and other wanderers. And you can do that by going to kgraradio.com/chat. The chat room is a space where you can visit with other wanderers throughout the show and, of course, ask questions to our guest. Please type them all in caps so we can see them easily, and we will do our best to grab them for our guest and get some answers for you. So, who is a fan of Valentine's Day? Anyone who knows me knows I'm definitely not. Well, I'm definitely not a fan of holidays in general, but it's all good. I play along, and tonight I'm actually really excited to see what our guests will be sharing with us because I personally have had experience the accuracy of his readings, astrology readings, that is. He also is the creator and teacher of a class called Love Under the Stars, your Astrology Love Signature Workshop. So how appropriate to have him come and wander with us this evening on the eve of Valentine's Day. Wouldn't you agree? So tonight, please let me introduce my friend Rob Barnes. As I mentioned, he is an astrologer. He's completely passionate about the planets and sharing his knowledge with others. He believes that the universe has its way of providing us with guidance, and he loves to share that guidance with you. So I recommend grabbing a notebook, Wanderers. This is going to be a fun one. Hello, Rob. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm so fantastic. How are you?
I am fantastic as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Happy Valentine's Day Eve.
Yes. Exciting, huh?
Well, it is for a lot of us. I don't know about for all of us. What's your take on Valentine's Day?
Well, it's kind of funny because it falls in the season of Aquarius and middle of winter. And so this is the time of love. Well, middle of winter, that just doesn't seem like, if it was spring, spring fever or, the hot summer nights or anything like that, you would think something would stir up love.
Right.
Sure, I guess you can get cozy and under a blanket in the middle of winter.
I was going to say there's always a snuggling option.
Yes. But then even Aquarius is a sign that's kind of more on the intellectual side. It's not the deeply romantic side. Not that Aquarians can't be romantic, but it's just kind of an odd pairing. So funny to have Valentine's Day on the 14th of February.
It's unique placement for sure.
Yeah. I think we needed something in February, and so let's just celebrate love for the heck of it.
Perfect timing then, I suppose.
Yes.
So, Rob,
and grab the blankets
what's that?
And the fireplace. So grab the blankets in the fireplace.
Oh yeah, get all snuggly. I can be down with that. Snuggly with my puppies. Anyways, we actually have had you on Soul Wanderings before when Soul Wanderings was a podcast. So some of our listeners may have heard of your journey story before, but for those who haven't or don't quite remember, I do want to talk about you for a little while before we get into the whole astrology thing.
Okay.
So let's talk about you. Tell us about who you are and how you got involved in this world of astrology.
Well, as it happens, life takes its little turns and twists and so on, and I kind of found myself on a road of discovery and tried a few different paths. I have a religious upbringing, excuse me, and very much enjoyed it and love a lot of that. But then there came some time when I wanted some additional answers. I wanted to kind of feel like I had more direction over my life, understand me and my makeup and my purpose and stuff like that. So my search really came down to wanting to figure those things out.
You were pretty young, though, weren't you?
What's that?
You were pretty young.
Yeah. So I went through a divorce, and like in my mid 30s, and so this was probably around 2005 when I'm really starting to search for different mentors, different trains of thought, philosophies. I tried. I went through like a lot of the healing modalities, energy work, Eastern philosophies, different things to really see what I could find and have an appreciation for those things. But then had a couple astrology readings. I had one from a fellow who's now passed away that was local here in Utah, and there were a couple points in that I remembered, which were very interesting. But it wasn't until 2007, the end of 2007, when I had another astrology reading, and this one just really sank in. Where, as we'll talk a little bit later, I found out that there was not only your sun sign, which I'm a Pisces, and so that means the sun was in the sign of Pisces, pretty much, what the time I was born, and but there's a rising sign, which is the sign that was rising in the east at the exact time you were born, and a moon sign, and each of these things represent the three biggest parts of your personality. And when I heard those things, I'm like, oh, that is me. That's more than I ever read in any horoscope column, because sometimes those horoscope columns are just so vague that, there's not really much there. This just really gave me something to hold on to. And the more I started getting into it, the more I'm like, oh, I'm really finding out about me.
Plus, some of us don't really. Sorry, you cut out. I apologize. I didn't mean to speak over you. Some of us really resonate more with like our moon sign or our rising more than our sun sign. So it's really neat that there are three of them, which complete your personality in whole.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's fascinating that being a Pisces, I'm a Scorpio rising. And there's something about a Scorpio rising, which, think about the scorpion. It has a hard shell, and it's kind of in defense mode. It has its stinger. It's hiding in the shadows and the cracks and under rocks and wherever. It it has kind of maybe this defensive posture. And so when it's your rising sign, this is like the mask that you wear. This is like how you kind of show your energy to the world, how people would interpret your energy. And so here, I've never been this big social person. You throw me at a party and I got my back up against a wall as fast as possible. And this always bothered me. And then when I had this reading and she explained, here's this Scorpio rising and what it means, I'm like, oh, then I'm not so socially backwards after all. This is just my sign. This is just how this works. And then I'm like, then I started to study and figure out, words that I could put to this so I could really describe me and kind of, feel like, oh, I'm okay. I get how this works now. And so I feel that part of my personality all the time.
So it all just started making sense for you and everything started falling into place.
Totally. So I just couldn't get enough of it from that point on.
When I had my first reading with you, I was actually quite blown away. I had heard of like the moon signs and the rising signs, but I never really put the pieces together. And when you were explaining my chart to me, I think you probably remember, I was just like, my chin was dropped and I was like, wait, what? This is crazy. How did you know this about me? And you didn't know me, but you were describing me perfectly just from my chart.
And that's pretty common. I'd say most of the time, if someone doesn't have any experience with astrology, then they're going to have that experience. When you create a chart for somebody, it's a snapshot of where all the planets are in the sky in relationship to each other, in relationship to Earth, and those different configurations mean things. And so astrology is simply a language of interpreting all these symbols into meaning. And so here I will tell someone, these symbols mean this, and that's a representation of maybe your inner workings, how your what you need for safety and security, moon sign. Venus, how you love and what you love. Mars, how you pursue what you love and what you want. And so when you can put it into terms like that and give an explanation, this is how it works, you get this look on some people's face where it's like, wow, like, how'd you know? I mean, well, it's just right there.
It's really neat to watch you interact with other people and watch person after person just be blown away just by you sharing just little bits of information about whatever sign it is, whatever sun sign, moon sign, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool. It blows my mind.
Yeah, oftentimes, like if I'm at a fair where, a passerby comes and just stops at the booth and you just kind of engage in some kind of conversation, it might just be, what's your sun sign? And so they whatever sun sign they throw out there, there's little stories, little things that we can talk about that resonate for most people of that sun sign. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of fun because it's still meaningful to you. But then, that's just scraping the surface of so much depth. And there's so much that you can see in astrology for people.
Are you able to tell what someone's sign is just by having a short conversation with them?
Yeah.
By their mannerisms or what they're sharing with you?
Yeah, that and the way they're dressed, the way they look, you take all those things into account. Not that I'm, 100% perfect at this kind of thing. It's fun. It's fun to try and guess. And before I became a professional astrologer, where it was just more of a hobby, I was a trainer, and I'd be up in the front of a class, and when I'd kind of introduce myself to the class, here's some of my interests and hobbies and stuff, and talk about astrology, of course, everyone's like, "Oh, that's cool." And then I'd kind of, well, who are my Libras, for instance? And, a few hands pop up, and I'd say a couple of different things. But then people would say, "Well, what do you think I am?" And then I'm on the spot trying to decide: am I seeing the rising sign, the mask, or am I seeing sun sign? The difference between the two: the rising sign is, again, how people are going to see you. Take the mask off once they get to know you, and this is what you get to see, the sun sign. And so it's a little bit challenging to do that, but you can there's a big difference between someone who may be really heavy emotional, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, compared to someone intellectual, a Libra, Gemini, or Aquarius. You have the fire signs. So anyway, there's all these differences and keys that you would be able to see in people based on those different signs. Maybe I can't quite get the Sagittarius, but maybe I get a fire sign. I can get pretty close that way.
So are you so involved in astrology that you perhaps look at your chart on a super regular basis for relationships, jobs, family situations, or anything like that?
Totally.
I knew it.
I spent the summer, I have another friend who's an astrologer, and we kind of spent the summer doing a lot of work together. And so meeting weekly and discussing the skies and what's going on, doing a little show on Facebook. And then, but then, of course, would talk about what's happening to us personally as well. And so it was fascinating, moving in and out of different situations and being able to predict, this is going to happen on approximately this date, and this is the kind of influence that we're talking about. And now let's see what happens. And it was pretty mind blowing, how accurate we were on quite a bit of it. Sometimes it's hard to say, exactly what is going on, but there's the general themes that we can get in a good ballpark.
Do you go as far as doing astrology for perhaps the president or someone that's in a more famous position to see what their next move may be or what they're possibly going through or thinking?
It's interesting. There's a lot of astrologers that do, and I'm not really turned on by the idea of famous people and their lives and tracking their lives, even though they're very visible, and that's why a lot of people do it. Because you can get in and make a prediction, and then they're in the news and they can kind of confirm it or not. My love has just been more, my clients and the personal stories and the heart to heart kind of stuff. And so I really don't follow, much of the trends and the famous people.
Is that the Pisces in you? The love connection, the connecting with other people and having the heart to heart conversations.
Yeah, it is, because I love the connection, and I love, my sessions aren't just me rattling off a whole bunch of intellectual information. I love to create an atmosphere where you're going to learn something about yourself, and we're going to get into, oftentimes there's tough stuff in a chart. I haven't seen one chart where it's like, you got your tough stuff just like everyone else does. And we don't shy away from those things. It's like, you already know it, you're already living it. So let's talk about it and see what we can do with it. Maybe there's some healing work that can be done as well.
Yeah. I really admire that about you with your readings. They are very personable and one on one. You don't walk away with a bunch of questions like you don't know what you were just told or what this meant or anything like that. So the way that you do it is fantastic. And for those of you wondering, he does do Skype and call readings, and we'll get to that later, but keep that in mind for future reference. Right now, however, we are going to take a break, our very first break for the evening. So you guys stick around. When we come back, there's going to be more to come. Hello, welcome back to Soul Wanderings. We are here wandering with our guest this evening, Rob Barnes. He's an astrologer and a super passionate and knowledgeable one at that. Rob, thanks again for being here on Soul Wanderings.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
So we were talking just vaguely right before the break. You had shared with us an experience that you did your chart for the year during the summer. Tell us more about that in depth. What did that look like? Like, was it a forecast? Share with us the details to your comfort level,
Sure.
of course, of what that was and what that looked like, and why would that be something someone would want to do for themselves?
Well, one, since you threw that on there, do for themselves, that might be hard to do. Because you have to know how the planets are working together and how they may or may not be working together, what the planets mean individually and what they mean when you pair them up.
Oh, right.
And
I
so-
meant like for themselves, like if they were to have that done for themselves, not necessarily them do it for themselves, like maybe you do it for them.
Yeah. Not that they couldn't learn, but
Right.
that, that's a tough one.
So little
So-
disclaimer.
Yeah. So a little bit what I was doing was I was tracking a love interest through the summer, and trying to see if I could kind of predict the ebbs and flows, how this was working, and there would come a point where say here's a Mars influence, and Mars can be kind of aggressive, assertive, fighter planet, in fact, there was one time when I went to a fair and you were there and you and I were talking, and I was asking, are other people having the same kind of experience where there's just this kind of frustration? And of the people I polled, it seemed like most people were kind of going through this.
Oh, yes.
Well, this was one of these. Do you remember that?
Yes, very much.
And so this was one of these times when it was a difficult situation that I was going through with this person. And so anyway, it was just kind of fascinating being able to say, well, then I can look in the future and say, when these planets combine to do this, that's going to be a bad day. And that day comes up, and sure enough, there was a breakup conversation on that day. Not started by me. And because a lot of people will say, well, this is, you put it out there, so, of course it's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't necessarily agree, because if I can go backwards, in the past and say, well, things happened on this date, just as well as the forward, then I just think things happen. The energies are there and present.
Right. You were taking note of it possibly being something that would happen.
Yeah. And I didn't know exactly how things were going to work out, but I knew it was kind of a challenging influence. And sure enough, that was. And it turned out to be definitely difficult and challenging. But then, there were other times, and it was other times through through the remainder of the year where I still was tracking some of these influences. And one week that I didn't do my show and I didn't watch the sky, and this one influence happened that was kind of a surprise influence. And it just kind of knocked me back that, here I had another experience with this person, but it was more of a surprise. And I had to go back and look at the planets after the fact. I'm like, oh, well, of course, had I looked, I would have predicted something, predicted a surprise event dealing with love. And I would have probably pegged it. So anyway, that's just kind of a little personal story. That's kind of the fun that I have with some of this. So I track, different areas of life. But it's kind of hard to even do your own all the time. I still like to wake up and not just run to my books and the computer and say, what's going to happen in the sky for me today. I don't do that at all.
I was going to ask you about that, how that would work out, knowing all of the time what type of event or situation was going to take place that day.
Yeah. And, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be subject to, thinking along those lines every day and, watching my step. Mm-hmm. For weekly, I like to look at weekly influences and then just kind of go from there. And then if something happens, then, or something big is, kind of in the skies, then, let's put a little emphasis on that. For instance, these last couple days, Mars and Uranus have been in the sky in the later degrees of Aries. And I wrote just a little blurb about it on my Facebook page and just kind of like a warning. Mars, a planet of aggression, Uranus, the planet of unexpected. And when they're in the sky together, there might be unexpected events dealing with Mars action energy. There could be accidents, there could be arguments, conflict, And so here's a place where I could look at my own life and say, all right, when these energies show up, take a chill pill, breathe, whatever, just so you can get through it. Mm. But as it was a horrific day. And all these different events that were happening is just event after event after event, challenging stuff that doesn't typically happen in a life. And so, part of me just smiles and says, well, what else did you expect? And the rest of it is just trying to hang on and get through it. So it's stuff like that where, if you have some guidance, you can get through stuff with some insights, knowing that, hey, this is coming up. And so, I do kind of a few different types of readings. This might be considered like a transit reading where I'm looking at the planets in the sky today, how they're interacting with your birth chart or your natal chart. Because your natal chart, your birth chart, these are the influences kind of directing or making your life path, if you want to say. And so as these planets kind of move around your chart, activating different points of that, it's bringing up different things for you to deal with. And so these planets are transiting. That's why I call it a transit reading. And you can find out what's going on for me today, what's coming up tomorrow. What are the themes that I have to deal with? What parts of me are being activated?
It's so detailed that you can break it down to the very day and have it be that accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, well, it was cute. I have a daughter who she's kind of my gypsy daughter, and she loves all the healing stuff, the crystals, astrology. And she sets up appointments for me. I go down to California every couple months, and she sets up appointments with her tribe down there, and she's sat in a couple of readings with me, some with her friends, and I'd throw out some date. Well, if we go back and look at this date, probably around this certain day, this is the event that happened in your life. And she tells me after the fact, says, Dad, you'd be throwing out all these dates and the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. It's like, you can't just do that. You can't just throw out a date and say this big thing happened in your life. And then the client would just like either break out in tears or just like jaw would drop, like, oh, that's when this thing happened in my life, And so my daughter, after a while, she's like, okay, I'll go with that then.
That's incredible. I've seen that happen though. When I watch you read other people and share that information, it never fails. Tears,
Yep.
jaw drops, all of it. So is a transit chart something that would be good for someone who is just getting into astrology to learn more about themselves and upcoming events, or what kind of chart would be good if it wasn't the transit chart?
So there's kind of two places to start. A natal chart, which is your birth chart, which really describes who you are, what are your tendencies, what are your challenges, your strengths, things like that. And that's really to get to know yourself. And so a lot of people want to start there. Some people want, maybe a little bit of that, but they're more interested in, I have these things going on with me. Can you just provide some kind of guidance? And that would be more of a transit reading. And so oftentimes I'll even combine the two, because I'm still looking at the natal chart and then just the planets transiting around the natal chart. So either of those is a great place. A solar return reading, which is a birthday reading, solar being the sun, return, meaning it returns back to the degree it was when you were born. That's your birthday reading. And that's more of a predictive kind of reading for the upcoming year to talk about what are the themes that you're going to be dealing with, who are the actors involved, what are the time frames, different events. And so that one is more complicated. That one takes more study time. And so that's not usually where people start. But after they've had a birth chart reading, then they're like, oh, this is cool. What else can you do? And,
Right.
and then we talk about solar returns, and let's arrange one for your birthday.
Definitely, I need a new reading. That's for sure. It's been way too long.
Yep.
So when someone comes to get a reading, what are the things that they need to know in order for you to prepare a chart for them?
Yep. The first thing that everyone has to know is their birth time. So that's usually what, maybe 50% of the people know their birth time. So looking at a birth certificate, if it's not on the birth certificate, because that's sometimes the case, find out if mom knows or dad knows. And if, some people, maybe the parents have passed away, and they still can't find it, finding out family stories, it's like, oh, the nurse had to be called back, from lunch or something. Okay, well, you were born around that time. And then we go into a process of trying to rectify a chart, trying to, depending on the different events and timing of your life, trying to figure out what time you might have been born.
So it doesn't need to be an exact time necessarily, but the more accurate, the better.
The more accurate, the better. There's things that if I don't think it's accurate, I'm not going to get into, because I don't want to read something that really doesn't apply.
Right.
And so, we're even talking maybe every 4 minutes the chart's going to change quite a bit.
Wow.
Excuse me.
That's
So,
quite often. 4 minutes
yeah.
isn't very long.
Yeah. So, and then the standard stuff. What city were you born in? What's your birthday? And believe it or not, I've had people that say, I really don't know those answers either. So.
But you would need to know all of them in order to get the most accurate reading, obviously.
Yes. See, what it affects is, imagine the east horizon. So the exact time that you're born, what was the constellation? If you could just draw a line straight out of the horizon out into space, what was the constellation that was directly east? If it was the constellation Scorpio, then you'd be considered Scorpio rising. I mean, generally that's kind of a word picture how this works.
It's so fascinating to me. And not only that, I don't know if any of you guys have seen a chart before, like a birth chart. Do you want to explain to them how it's broken down? I mean,
sure.
I know there's quite a bit of detail in a chart, but there are categories.
Yeah. So picture a circle and almost like a wagon wheel with 12 spokes. And so you're going to draw a line across the center from left to right. The left side we're going to call the east, right side we're going to call the west. And so that's really the horizon. So in the very center would be Earth. And then with these 12 spokes, what we've done is divided up the sky into 12 different parts. And so each part of the sky represents a different place of life. So for instance, the first, and we call these houses. So this first section, the first house, because this is the part of your rising sign, this is whatever is in that house, whatever planet, whatever sign, kind of colors or configures this part of you that shows up when you meet people, when you're in unfamiliar places. Whereas if we look at the 10th house or 10th section of the sky, this has themes about a career or you in the public eye or authority figures, kind of maybe your ambitions. Whereas 5th house, it might deal more with your ability to self-express. What's your artistic creativity? It's the house of children, delight, sports, romance. So all these different sections of the sky have different themes. Then you take planets, and we call the sun and moon planets in astrology. So you have all the planets, and then they'll be, positioned throughout this chart as well. And each of the planets represents a different part of your personality. So the sun, for instance, you could say the sun represents what I know to be true about me, who I am. It's, my ego, my vitality. When I start listing off traits of that person's sun sign, they're kind of like, yeah, that's me. The moon would represent, but here's how you really feel about yourself. My case, for instance, I'm a Pisces. My Pisces is the sun sign. So I start reading all these Piscean qualities and I'm like, yep, that's me. But really the way I feel, I'm a Taurus because I have a Taurus moon. And so I feel fixed. I feel grounded. I feel immovable in my position, the emotional life, my surroundings, what I feel safe in, what I need for security. All these things are these Taurian qualities. And so, but I resonate with those both. I know I'm a Pisces, but I really feel this fixed stuff with my Taurus moon. So each of the planets represents that different part of the personality. It was funny because, I've been single for most of most of the past 14 years. And so I was interested in Venus. Venus representing what you love, how you love. Because how does Venus show up in dating? We'll get into more of this later in the show. But I was interested because I'm like, oh, I'm dating. So what do I need to know about my Venus? And so it was fascinating to learn the different characteristics of that Venus. And I'm like, oh, no wonder I do what I do. No wonder that happens like that. And so all these things just start making sense. And that's generally what happens with the astrology. It makes sense. I forgot to mention the signs. Each planet will be in a sign, and that part of that sign kind of flavors that part of the personality. So you can combine the sign, the house, the planet, the aspects it makes, meaning the connections it makes to other planets, all those things to come up with a description of how this part of my life works.
Is it very...
So that's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, it's great. And it's so artistic the way that it all shows up when you show the chart, because everyone's chart is so different and unique from one another.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, it's fun because someone will look at their chart and say, how come everything's bunched up right over here?
I had that experience.
Look at another chart and it's more of a splatter. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
They're like, is that bad? Is that, I'm like, there's good and bad in everything. There's not a good and there's not a bad. It's just, this is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is who you are. So then we jump into those descriptions and I'm like, oh yeah, that totally fits.
Yeah. I remember my chart being all pretty much on one half of the chart, not really all over the place at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was fascinating. Yes, I really do need another reading.
About what you don't know.
What's that?
Which would make you inquisitive about the other half of life that you don't know about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. What are some really common questions that people ask you right from the get-go if they don't know a lot about astrology and they're curious about what you do or what you can share with them? What are some common questions that they ask?
Yeah. One of the questions, one is like, what can astrology really do for me? And I find it fascinating because as I've been kind of growing in my business and talking with a lot of people about that particular question, the mindset is horoscopes, and horoscopes are just there to kind of, give you that little prediction. So what can astrology really do for me? Without being too vague and just saying, well, everything. Because I don't know if I believe everything, but, along those lines, do you want to know timing of love, for instance? Do you want to know when's the good time to leave a job, or are you going to be moving soon? So we can get into all the different areas of life and really find out, well, what's the story that's going on, or when is that story going to take place? Because it's all there. It's kind of like it's all recorded in your chart, and it just takes time for it to develop or to be activated. And so we just look for those timing events.
So you really can find the answers to very specific questions like that?
Yes.
Wow.
What's funny
go ahead.
is oftentimes I'm in the middle of a reading and someone says, well, do you see a move showing up? And I look, at the location of a chart for home, and there's a planet that's kind of anywhere but here going through home, and it says, oh yeah, funny that you should ask, because you're moving and the influence time frame says, September. and they're like, oh, wow. Cause that's when we decided to put the house up on the market, you know?
See, that's so incredible. What
Yeah,
about
that's fun.
what about questions like, I do art. So what if I'm having like this creative block and I don't know why or what I can do about it? Could you even answer questions in that regards?
Yes. Because we look at the different planets and we say some, we call them malefics, challenging planets, and benefics, the positive planets. And so you could say a malefic might be afflicting the planet that is responsible for your artistic abilities. So afflicting might be, kind of a negative energy. So maybe it's the planet of roadblocks and obstacles and challenges and life's lessons.
Mm.
Or maybe it's I'm trying to think of different scenarios. Maybe it's something where there's too much impatience, and so you're used to doing something, through a certain process, but because of this influence, you don't even allow your time to do this process. It's like I want it here and now, but I can't, so I'm frustrated and I can't do this. You can see the different planet influences and be able to paint that picture.
That is so detailed. So detailed.
Yeah.
I really love how you can literally break it down into so many minute details. It's so fascinating. Oh, we're going to take a break. This is a good breaking point. Let's do that because then we can get on with the other half of the show, which we're going to focus a little bit on love, seeing how it's Valentine's Day Eve and all. You guys are listening to Soul Wanderings here on KGRAradio.com. We're going to take our break and we'll return shortly to wander with our guest, Rob Barnes. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings, which is heard here on KGRAradio.com, as well as many other platforms for your convenience, such as TalkStream Live, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. Also, brand new, be sure to check out KGRA on YouTube for the latest show archives. Wherever you guys are joining us from tonight, welcome, welcome. We're happy to have you here wandering with us this evening. We've been visiting with Rob Barnes. He's an astrologer and teacher of Love Under the Stars, which we'll be talking more about here shortly. If you guys have any questions, make sure you're over in the chat room on kgraradio.com/chat and ask your questions there. You may want to know some answers why we have Rob's attention. So hop over there, join us and the other wanderers. So Rob, during the break, we got a question from the chat room. Speaking of, Libertas wanted to know, how does one's sex impact an astrology chart?
Oh, okay. So it's a good question. It's fun if you go out and just do a Google search. For instance, you could say Pisces male or Pisces female, if you wanted to go along those lines and read some of the differences. There are some things that you'll see different. And I'll give you kind of a general idea here. Let's take Leo. If you know, let's look at the lion in the Serengeti. Who's doing all the work, she or he?
Oh, are you asking me? I'm like listening to you.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm not really that familiar.
Okay, so who hunts all the food?
Obviously,
she does.
Okay.
And she takes care of the cubs. and you have a picture of him, and what's he doing? He's sunbathing.
Yeah.
Okay. So just that alone, we could surmise that maybe a male Leo might be a little bit more docile. Maybe a female might be a little bit more aggressive or assertive.
Sense.
Okay. That's not always the case. I mean, there's a lot of things that would change both of those, but that's how you could see just a Leo might be different between a female and a male.
So there are differences, even if they're little ones.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
So how it affects a chart, it's not going to, it's not going to affect a chart, like the different happenings so much. Like the influencers are going to be influences whether you're male or female. But what happens with that influence, that could be different. If you're prone to violence, for instance, well, if there may be differences with a female and a male, how violence comes out at that person. So there could be things like that would be shaped different.
Makes total sense. So speaking of the sexes, we're going to talk about love.
Yay.
Yay. My favorite subject. I love love. Not romantic love so much as just the vibration of. Everyone knows that I'm a fan. So, but in this case, we'll be talking about both, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a fan of romantic love, so the two of us teamed up and we got it covered.
I'm not opposed. I'm just saying I'm a realist too. So, but the Pisces in me is a total romantic.
Well, there's a place, like I mentioned earlier, the houses. The fifth house is the house of romance. This is self-expression and pleasures and delights and so on. So imagine if your sun sign, and the sun being what I identify with, is in the fifth house, chances are you're kind of maybe an idealistic or a romantic, along those lines. So that might shape that part of you.
Again, so detailed.
Yep.
So what is it that you want to share with all of us when it comes to the charts and the connections, the love connections?
There's I guess a few different things. There's a way of doing readings for relationships. There's quite a few different ways to do it. One's called synastry, where you take two charts and kind of overlay them over top of each other and see what planets are connecting and how they're connecting and that sort of thing. There's another one where you take two charts and kind of merge them into one chart. So there's just one sun sign and one of each of the planets, but it's kind of like, the degree of this one plus the degree of this one divided in half, and this is where it's at. It's kind of complicated how it's created, but it's another type of chart. So each of these have their the information that is great to look at for whatever the relationship, the couple that we're looking at. It comes down to say compatibility or incompatibility. I've been asked so many times, who's the perfect person for me? Who's the perfect sign for me? Things like that. And I'm like, well, even if I could design the perfect one, you're not going to find them. It's just, that's not the way things work. I've been looking at charts now since 2007, and there's nothing remotely perfect about any chart that I look at in relationship to mine. So we just take kind of what we have and work with it. And so therefore, we really need to get into, well, what is compatibility and what isn't compatibility, And how do you work with those? I've had people ask, well, could you have saved your marriage had you known astrology back then? And, to a degree, I think yes, because I would have seen her in a different light than I did. And I would have known her strengths and challenges, and I would have known mine. And having that knowledge, here's something I could work with. Now, it is nice when when you have more compatibilities than incompatibilities. And I think in that case, it would have been a challenge still. But then it comes down to, well, what do you want to do? You have a marriage, you have children. Do you want to invest the time into working with each other? Because here's the answers. Or do you not? And that's as simple as it comes down to for me. So
just like with any other reading, it is the person's free will. They're still going to choose or put the effort in if they decide to or not to.
Yeah.
Regardless
and there's a
of
lot
what
of
you
awareness.
share.
Awareness is still key. It took me it took me a long time to still really understand myself, and it's still an ongoing journey.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my habits, here's my tendencies and my attitudes. And so some of these, I'm pretty stubborn. And so when it comes to, you're going to have to make a change in this area, I'm like, or not. And so I just might end up doing what I'm doing for a long time because I'm just kind of stubborn.
Well, didn't you say your rising was Taurus?
So my moon is Taurus.
Your moon is Taurus. Okay.
And my rising is Scorpio. And
Which
both of those are
sense.
Fixed signs. So
right.
Yes. So I'm kind of like an Oreo cookie.
Definitely a good way to put it. That's great. Yes, 2 hard shells and a soft middle.
Yes. Soft middle Pisces.
Yes, us Pisces, huh? We're all
Yes.
soft and squishy. So as far just keep going. Tell me more. You're so good at just sharing all of this astrology stuff, and honestly, I'm still just blown away by all of it.
Well, and love has been one of my favorite topics in astrology. You can see kind of a signature in someone's chart oftentimes that here's what they're here to try and figure out. Here being, this earth life, this is what you're here to do, what your, your mission, your purpose, whatever. Or this is the area of life where you need to apply certain details or certain effort to accomplish this because this is in your face, and I have one of those, and it has to do with relationships. And so relationships have become this favorite topic of mine. I'll kind of make fun of myself by saying, a poet writes poems about love because they can't love. So I'll teach about romance and relationships because I can't do them. Do
you really believe that's a fact?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm like, you're one of I just know because I know you. You're just, I don't see you that way at all. I see your soft and squishy side, your Oreo center side.
Yeah, I'll have to show you that rough, the top part too sometime. So.
There is a question though, really quick before, because you say you love the relationship part of readings. Mm-hmm. Someone did ask if, what maintains your interest doing the charts for others, and does it ever become mundane for you?
Good question. The answer is no, never. In fact, there's been times where, I've worked at some fairs, and some of these are, say 3 days long. I could be working 10 hours a day for 3 days. And if I was doing readings for each, every half hour or hour, whatever I'm doing, I can go a full day. And when I'm done, I am so exhilarated.
Mm,
I'm a spiritual high. Um, and so, no, I might crash a few hours later, but
right.
it's to me, it's that exciting.
Yeah, I've seen you. You get giddy. You're
Yes.
like a child. You're like super giddy at the end of the day. You're not beat down.
Yeah, not at all.
In
So what was
fact,
the first part of that?
you do your little jumping thing. They were just wondering if if it becomes mundane for you, or do you find new and interesting things each time?
So I'm still a student of astrology. I don't think I could live 100 years studying astrology and still feel like I'm still learning. That's how
Mm,
much there is out there to know. And so every single chart that I read, there's something new in it. Um,
mm,
every every reading that I do, there's um, it's a completely different experience. So I love it. I get a mix of a couple parts of me. Here's this analytical mind that I have to know the answers to the universe. I have to know everything. And then here's this, the compassion and empathy and feeling side of me. And, I'm engaged in both of those things. And then here's this intuition that, as intuition does, it decides when it's going to be activated.
mm.
Pops in. It's like, oh, here's an answer to this question, or here's the details to the story that we just talked about. And so all these parts of me just come alive when I'm doing the readings.
Has there ever been a reading for you that has um, kind of stuck with you, like it affected you on a personal level? Either that you really assisted someone in a dramatic way, or even shared something with them that like changed them and fulfilled you somehow. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a reading with someone that just kind of is one you won't forget.
yeah, and yeah, that happens quite often. Because you get into some areas where you're making some predictions, and and then you get a phone call, 7 months later, and say, I just wanted you to know, you were off by a day. you know this thing happened, and you just needed to know, and so thanks, because I was prepared for it.
Mm,
you know and so those things have happened. Looking back, where there's been a few times where, like one of these stories with my daughter, and these pulling out a date, and here's an event that happened at this part of your life. um, One of these experiences was really beautiful because, not that everyone, is going to cry during a session, but in this particular case, I mentioned this point, and the tears just came. And what was beautiful is it was healing in the fact that, that the chart dictated it was going to happen. Like, she didn't do anything wrong in her life, and so she needed that validation to just understand that, this was part of the process. And so to see it from someone else's view, an outsider, or to see it in the chart, was just confirming that this was a big part of her life, was supposed to happen, and now here's what we can do with it.
mm.
Those stories, those are regular, and I love them, and that just keeps my fire burning all the time.
You can tell that you're very passionate about what you do and that you have found your calling in life.
Took me long enough. I would have
Well,
loved to
you
start
still
this when
have
I was a kid.
yeah, you still have so much life to live though, and And the fact that you found it now, so many of us are still wondering what we're going to be when we grow up.
Yep. Does that mean I grew up?
No. I know you well enough to know that's no. But going back to the love stuff, what about if someone was curious about, say they have a fear of intimacy or getting close to someone? Is that something that you can spot and help them work through so that they can have a relationship that would be successful?
So we can create awareness. So in your question, can they do something about it?
Well, if they choose to.
Right. And that's what it comes down to. So we can create the awareness. Here is where it's at in your chart. Here's the description. Here's how it works. Here's the different areas that are involved. Here's why it happened, and here's how it's showing up in your life. All these different things.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes down to, are you willing to try something different? Are you willing to work with it or not? Because there's some real sensitive stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it in a chart, and these are some of those where I just might come right to a question, say, what happened with you and your mom when you were 16? And the jaw drops, and it's like, oh, well, this and this and this and this. I'm like, okay, well, because of this experience, now you don't want anything to do with emotion again. And so are you willing to go do the work with mom? Are you willing to do that healing stuff so that you can get to that place?
Mm-hmm. I just find it, I don't even know what the word is, but people will go and look up their astrology reading for the day or for the month on Google or whatever app they have. And they're very, they're kind of plain and simple, but people will resonate with them, whatever that looks like. It's more of entertainment purposes type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think people who aren't familiar with astrology obviously realize the impact of having a reading can have on them. You really get down to really tiny details.
Yeah.
It could be life altering.
My experience was just that. I had that one, my second reading, and it just woke up all of my senses, and I'm like, there's some truth here. There's something about this that I need to know. Something about me that I can get to, that I can figure me out, and how what an amazing journey it's been since.
Mm. Is that the experience you said in the beginning of the show that you would share later? With your second reading?
Oh.
You had made a comment that you would share more about it later, and I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to.
No, I don't recall.
Okay. No big deal.
So, trying to think of where to go next.
The love. So we're talking about love. Tomorrow's Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So let's break it down to like smaller terms. Let's like do sun signs or something like that, because most people know what their sun sign is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And maybe just throw out a couple of signs and share what that may look like for someone.
A lot of people will ask, what's the perfect sign for me? And so here's some simple things that we can look at. But with astrology, there's caveats to everything.
Right.
So let's say you're a fire sign, which is Sagittarius, Leo, and Aries. Fire. What does fire need to continue to burn? Does it need water? No.
Mm-mm.
So fire signs and water signs typically are not a match. So Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer. Air signs, Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. Does air and fire match, or do they work together? Yes. So here's a natural element combination that you could say, well, those signs, there's generally something that works. Same thing with earth and water. Do earth and water repulse or separate from each other? No, they kind of work together. Earth holds water. So you could look at those signs, Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo, and match those with the water signs. So that's just a general way of looking things. What I see in marriages a lot is someone's moon sign in the same sign as someone's sun sign. So for me, that would be, since I have a Pisces moon, my partner would have a Pisces moon. So my sun, her moon. That shows up in marriage a lot. The same season. So Pisces is end of winter. So a winter sign, Aquarius, Capricorn. So same season or sign side by side. So the sign before Pisces, the sign after Pisces. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why you end up kind of doing an astrology reading, because there are so many different things. There might be there might be a case where my sun and her moon are in the same sign, but Mars and Venus, which can create sexual compatibility, maybe they don't even communicate. So maybe there's no sexual compatibility, or there's just no sex. Maybe our two Mercuries, hers and mine, conflict. And so there might be arguments. Even though I got this feeling about her, we can't ever communicate.
Mm.
So looking at the whole chart, then you get a good idea of well, what do I have to work with this person? So there isn't really a sign that works best. But, since not everyone's astrologers out there, you got to start somewhere. So maybe match up elements.
Would this be the same across the board in any kind of relationship, not just romantic?
Not necessarily. So, for instance, that Mercury idea, if two Mercuries conflict, let's say that it's two people at work. I don't have to be married to you at work. I don't have to even like you. I have to work with you. Or we're both fired. So we might get into some heated discussions, but that may bring up some ideas where, because of this conflict, something came from it. Mm-hmm. And then I can go home where I'm nice and happy, and then go back to work, back to the conflict. Progress is made because of this. So in those cases, it might actually turn out something usable, but I wouldn't want to be married to that.
Right. That would make sense.
Yeah.
So what about in situations where a water sign and a water sign, or an air and an air, were together? Would that also depend on what their moon sign or anything like that would be?
Yes.
Or would they just naturally get along because they're the same sun signs?
You do have that ease because, like, we all swim in the same water, the water signs. And so water signs have this sense of feeling and emotionality to them. There's almost this energy where you can just read each other's auras or read each other's energy, that sort of thing. So the communication may not be as verbal, it might be at a different level. And so we would have that in common. Whereas, say, fire signs, they might be more prone to, they're the purpose, they're the reason for the relationship. They're the ones who, it's kind of this individual type of idea, or their passions, their assertions, that keep things going. It's like keep the fire burning. Maybe they're more optimistic. Maybe they don't want to dwell in that realm of all the emotions because they're too busy trying to make stuff happen, their action.
Mm.
And so you get two people like that together, and one's not dragging the other person down.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
How do you feel about skipping the last break? Let's keep going, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell you what was funny. I played Apples to Apples. You've played the game?
I've heard of it. I've never played it.
Okay. So if people have heard the game, I did this with my kids and knowing all their signs. Anyway, you're basically have this description or this word, and I throw down the word, and everyone has to take a word from their hand that might be a good description of my word. And but I don't know who threw what card. And so as I'm playing this game, I'm throwing the card based on what sign my child is. And so if I have a Taurus daughter, so Taurus is linear, practical, everything has to make sense. And so I'm going to take a definition that matches, that is the most practical answer that I could possibly find. So she would pick my answer. Mm-hmm. And then with the Aquarius, he's kind of maybe a rebel. He just doesn't want dad to win. And so I try and find a card specifically for him. And another one who has, he just wants to be funny. So I throw down the funniest, for him. Anyway, I'm playing this game and I'm winning every single hand before I tell them what I'm doing. And so it's we don't play that game much anymore.
Yeah, I bet. So you've got it down. Oh, that's wonderful. I wouldn't want to play a game with you then.
Anyway, back to love. Yes. So I'm teaching a love class.
Yes, let's talk about that, Love Under the Stars.
Yeah, it's a 6-hour course, and it comes down to two things. What is your love language, so that you can determine compatibility and incompatibility and what to do with it. And then the second part of it is timing of love. When does it happen for me? So, so the first part, talking about love, we get into what are the planets that make up love. So Venus is a big one because Venus stands for, what I love and how I love. And so, so if people in the audience, if they know their Venus, they might want to shout out what their Venus is. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit.
I'm going to ask them right now.
Okay. So, because we can get into some pretty simple explanations to help you understand this is how it works. So let's take, for instance, a Venus in the sign of Cancer. Okay. Cancer is a water sign. And so how is Venus going to love? Well, there's going to be emotion involved. Cancer, we kind of look at as the nurturer. And so Venus might be a nurturer. This is how she shows love. And so the positive side is, guess who's going to take care of you? She's going to take care of, this is the way she's showing you her love and affection, by taking care of you. Going to take care of you when you're sick. She's going to cook your meals. She's going to dote on you, love you, all these little things. And what's the challenging side? She might be overly motherly on you.
There is that factor. So,
yeah.
How would someone find out what their Venus is? Is that part of something that comes up in the chart?
It's pretty easy. There's a few different free resources out on the internet. You can go to astro.com, create a free profile, enter all your birth information, and create yourself a chart. And then it'll tell you right there what chart or what all the different planets, what sign they're in.
Okay.
Cafe Astrology does the same thing.
Okay. I was curious because everyone in the chat room is saying no to
Okay.
the question of what their Venus is. So perhaps we can do mine or yours as an example.
Yeah, I'm happy to do mine again. We can probably even do both, if you'd like. So that's what it was. When you just reminded me, my Venus is in Aries. And so this is what I learned from my first reading that I was going to talk about later.
Oh, good.
So Venus is in Aries. So I'm interested, how does this work out in dating? Well, Venus in Aries is a fire sign. And so how does a fire start? A fire can start quite quickly and blow up really quickly. Think of how fast forest fires start. And so themes that seem to fit for Aries and for fire signs, passion. So as soon as there's something I love, and it could be a person or it could be a thing, a project, it's like it's all consuming and all my passion goes into this thing. It's like, I gotta have it now. Okay. And how fast can fire die? Without enough oxygen or wood or whatever, it can burn out quite quickly. And so how fast does that passion leave? Well, quite quickly. And so what I saw in my dating was I'm all in. I meet someone and like, that's the object of my affection, and I just can't think about anything else. And things are exciting. We're texting, we're talking. There's a couple days where things are kind of a lull, not much is happening, and I'm like, I guess I'm on to the next one. And I saw that. I'm like, no way. That is crazy how that works. And so realizing that here's this Venus, the Venus needed stimulation. It needed energy. Aries is an energetic sign. It's a fresh, new sign. So it always needed something new and fresh and stimulating. So if that's my love language, well, then how am I ever going to be with one person? And so I started to think, through those thoughts, and like, I just have to recognize this is how that works. The way it showed up before is if I didn't have enough stimulation, well, what's another way you can create stimulation? You can fight. And so I was prone to kind of agitating or nitpicking or whatever to, again, create some kind of a spark. And so one way or another, it was happening. So now, knowing how those things worked, I can at least work with that a little bit better. It's like, all right, if there's a lull, that doesn't mean I'm not interested or she's not interested. It just means there's a lull. And at some point, there's going to be that spark again. Or if not, maybe I need to find someone who's sparky.
Always a fire going, right?
Right. And so what happens is I'm drawn to people who are a little bit more sparky. Maybe they're a little bit more verbal or aggressive or assertive. I found out about me that I need that. So
that's good great stuff to know.
Totally.
Because then you're not going into like this mindset of, how we, us as humans, will naturally go more towards the negative side unless we practice otherwise. But, like in the victim mentality, like nobody wants to be with me. I'm not good enough for anyone, or I get bored too easily. So I'm going to be alone forever.
Right.
So it's good stuff to know.
Yeah. So this was so huge, and so now I've seen how to work with it, and it's like, all right, when I'm dating, I know specifically what to look for because I know I'm not going to bring it. So she needs to bring it.
She needs to bring that lighter and the fluid.
Yes. Please ablaze for me.
Yes. That is good information. That what someone would benefit from knowing.
Yeah. Now, what if I meet someone and their Venus is, let's say, a water sign? Okay. Let's say Scorpio. Scorpio, and if we think about that hard shell again, why does a scorpion have a hard shell? To protect all the goo inside. So what we're really looking at here is maybe someone who their love language is so deep, so passionate, so vulnerable that maybe it's very protected.
I could see that with most Scorpios I know.
Uh-huh.
Definitely.
So if our two Venuses are mine's needing her to be this fiery, sparky person, passionate, and what I'm getting is the very subtle depth, deep emotion, withholding, kind of holding back, making sure everything's secure, trying to lure me down to the dungeon. I'm like, yeah, that's not working for me.
Right. That would make sense.
Yeah. And so our love languages don't necessarily work. That doesn't mean you can't make the relationship work. It just means other parts hopefully match up better and that use that,
Mm-hmm.
that match up like maybe a moon sign. If you had a fire moon and I have my Aries Venus, well, because those are fire signs, maybe those do work. So the way you are emotionally, the way that you nurture and care matches my love language. And so guess what? I feel nurtured and cared for. Mm-hmm. And because you're fiery moon, your emotional personality, you're fiery, well, then that kind of works. So there's a lot of different things to look at.
Right. It's deciding what you'll want more than the other.
And how many can you string along together? Compatibilities.
So when you're talking about love language, I'm assuming you're talking about like the 5 love languages in general.
Not
necessarily. Okay.
No, I'm familiar, with the writings of the book.
Well, when you're talking about love languages in astrology, what do you mean? Just to be more detailed for our listeners.
Yeah, so that love language that I described with the Aries Venus would be, my love language is that of heated passion. And so anything that I love, I'm going to be passionate about. I'm going to put all my heart and soul into, but the sustainability isn't there. So that's my love language. So someone else's love language. Do you want to share your Venus?
I don't even know if I know what mine is.
Okay.
You have my chart. It's been that long.
Yeah, buried away somewhere.
Yeah. I don't even remember what it is, to be honest.
So if we just pick another Venus, let's say Aquarius. Okay, where Aquarius, think about the night sky. Okay, because Aquarius rules the night sky. How many stars do you see?
Infinite.
Yes. So how focused might it be on one star? It's kind of not. You look at the night sky and you see all the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's an idea, a theme here where that can work with Aquarius, because Aquarius is one of the signs that kind of represents friends or society or community. Okay, so how individualistic does it make this Venus sound? Probably not much. So the opposite sign, Leo would be represented by the sun. When the sun's in the sky, what else is in the sky? Pretty much nothing. So if the Venus is in Leo, then we're talking, Venus is kind of like the sun. It's on center stage. and it's the only thing there. So all your heart and soul is going to be into this Venus. Whereas in Aquarius, it might be dispersed amongst many. So what I'm getting to here is this idea with Aquarius is the Venus, what I love, it might be more on a friendship level. A lot of Venus and Aquarius people I've talked with, they do better creating relationships from someone who they consider a friend or someone part of their community, their group, where it's not a watery sign, so it's not an emotional Venus. It's more an air sign, so it's more intellectual. It's the communication. It's our group. It seems that it works out better where I avoid all the emotional drama stuff. I don't want that in a relationship. We do better being friends for a long time, and then all of a sudden, look, something's developed, and this is who they fall in love with.
Unexpectedly.
Yeah.
So those are things. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, and then the with the Leo story, it's like as soon as Leo, the love and romance of the lovers of the zodiac, Venus in the sign of Leo is like, yeah, and you better bring me all the flowers for Valentine's Day, all of them. You have to show me love on stage, center stage.
Of course. It's so amazing to me how it's so specific and so accurate. I'm still just blown away every time I talk to you.
Well, I have to admit, I still get blown away by looking at charts, and it's regular where I'm just still like, wow, this is so cool.
Mm-hmm. So in your workshop that you are teaching, The Love Under the Stars, you talk about your love signature. You talk about your Venus through the signs in your chart. And so during that course, obviously they're going to come through with a better understanding of what that means for them. What else goes on in that workshop?
So you got to know the Venus. You got to know your love story. Then there's other planets that play a huge role: Mars, Moon, and the Sun. And so we deal with all four of those. The other planets kind of act as modifiers and timers. So modifiers, like if Pluto is the planet of intensity and control, let's say, well, if Pluto and Venus were in the same place in the sky, well, guess what your love language is like? You just take whatever it was, and now let's just put it on steroids. So it's even more of that. It's more intense. It's more obsessive, controlling. And so you have planets that can really change things. If it was a Saturn is like this figure of the old wise man. It's practicality, it's life's lessons, it's the challenges and responsibility. So a Venus and a Saturn together would maybe make it feel like this real maturity or this level of authority. Maybe you're attracted to an authority figure because this is what your Venus love language is, or attracted to someone older. So there's modifiers like that. And then we get into timing. So a lot of people want to know, when's love going to happen for me? And there's a few different methods of looking at when what planets for you specifically are in charge of timing for love, and then what's the condition of those planets. What's happening in the sky to those planets to say right now is a good time or right now is not a good time.
Is love ever in good timing? I mean, after all.
To me, love's always good timing. It's like, but is it my time yet?
Yeah. So is this a workshop that people can come to even if they are in a relationship? Would that help them better understand their relationship together?
Yes. It doesn't matter if you're single, in a relationship, because there's so much on compatibility that we focus on and how to work with it.
Mm.
And not only that, but even the timing is kind of fun. When I was making my studies on this, and there was this certain technique that as soon as I understood the technique, I applied it to my marriage, and this particular technique, like there's 360 degrees in a circle in a chart, and I was off by 1 degree from my ex. You know, this sensitive point in my chart, saying of all the points in my chart, here's the most sensitive, and I happen to marry someone right there on my chart.
Mm.
And so there's some things that are just that fascinating.
I find it all fascinating. I'm still, every time I talk to you, blown away, like I said. I was looking at your website earlier in the description of your workshop, and you were, I can't remember the exact wording, but you were going to address different relationship issues. So even in your workshop, you don't just talk about the signatures and the compatibility, but you even talk about how people attract the same type of person continuously, or what makes an attraction.
Yes. For example, if you look at my Venus and I need someone sparky and fiery and passionate, how come I always draw someone to me who knows how to fight? Because they're fiery, you know? So they may not be a pushover personality. Well, if I wasn't aware of this, I'm like, how come I'm always, in conflict? How come that's the case? Well, guess what? That's how I'm built. I need that for that stimulation. I just need to know how to use it right. So if I'm completely unaware of that, I'm like, dang, I can't ever get a break.
Yeah, you could be looking at it as in you're attracting this drama all of the time, when in fact you're just not knowing how to be in a relationship that's more heated and intense to your advantage.
Correct.
So fascinating. Word of the evening. So fascinating. It really is. It just blows my mind.
Yes. So we didn't mention the website yet. So the website, you can find me at astrologybyrob.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/rob.astrologer. You're welcome to go there and like the page and see the different things that are going on. So.
Yes, and I've been sharing the website in the chat room, and we were going to get to that, so I'm glad that you shared it. I do have a few more questions, speaking of chat room, before we conclude this wandering. But one of the questions was, do any of your readings include a 13th zodiac sign?
No.
Okay.
And this is what happens when you match astronomy with astrology. Astronomers want to say, well, there's 13 signs in the zodiac, and astrologers say, well, for thousands of years, we've just used the 12 and we're going to stay that way. And so, in astrology, there's not really a 13th sign.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And another question is, do you have more females than males that request charts, or vice versa?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's probably in the area of 80% of my clientele would be female.
It's your charm, isn't it?
No.
If you guys meet Rob in person, he's quite charming. You guys will just be enamored by him. You're just so much fun to be around.
You can't see me blush.
So. I just say it how it is.
it's all fun. We like, this stuff is just so fun to talk about that,
Mhm.
I think part of that is, I bubble when I talk about it.
Yeah, and it's obvious. It shows through your work. Your passion definitely shines through. I read before we go, I read an article not too long ago that the zodiacs would be changing. The dates change, so a lot of people's sun signs would be different. Is that truth, or was that just an article?
There's a truth to that too. So every 72 years, you could say the degree of all the zodiac signs would change. And so since astrology's been around for a few thousand years, things could change quite dramatically.
Hmm.
But we're also looking at actual constellations, and we're looking at seasons. And there's a brand of astrology that has followed constellations. There's a brand of astrology that's followed seasons. And so they all work, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And so
if you're born in a particular sun sign, it's not necessarily going to change because the charts have changed a little bit. It would be from the person born on that day going forward that it would be different? Or would it change for everybody?
The same brand of astrology that works today worked, like 1,000 years ago, even though these things changed, because it might be following seasons instead of this degree that moves.
Right. Okay. Got you.
And so this other brand of astrology might say, well, even though I'm a Pisces on Western astrology, this other might say, well, maybe I am now an Aries. And so they'll give me a reading as an Aries, but the delineation for that Aries might still resonate with me. It might not be the same as an Aries in the Western astrology.
That makes sense. And there are different types.
Yes.
Wonderful. Again, you guys, make sure you go over and check out Rob's website. He has ways to book appointments online. He has all of his pricing and the different types of readings, as well as his class information if you're local. And that is at astrologybyrob.com, and also the same on Facebook. So check it out. Get a reading from him because he's amazing and passionate about what he does. And Rob, it was so awesome to have you on Soul Wanderings again. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. I absolutely love
it. I can tell. Thank you so much. Next week, we will be wandering with Lee McCormick, the author of The Heart Reconnection Guidebook. He will be sharing with us how to harness your heart's innate ability to reclaim its wholeness. Another fantastic wandering to look forward to. Thank you, everyone, for spending time with myself and Rob Barnes this evening. Find more information at soulwanderings.com and see the upcoming guest information there, as well as all of the social media links that you can follow the show and myself at. Follow me, support me. I love all of the messages I get every week. You guys are the best. I hope you have been and continue to learn each week as we share space together, and that you feel comforted and supported in knowing that you are not alone through this human journey. We are all divinely connected and loved. Happy day.